asked today to talk about digital twins. So it's not really kind of fundamental AI, but it uses AI and it will use AI in the future. And the reason that I guess I'm up here standing talking about digital twins is that I've got a background in mathematical uncertainty, model development, and taking mathematical models and applying them to decision making. So I've spent a lot of time working with Martine and academics like her saying, right, well, how do I take a mathematical model and apply it to actually help decision makers? And one of the things that we did in terms of COVID was, well, there are an awful lot of academic epidemiological models. They all say different things, right? And we need a government response. So what I don't need to be in is a situation where I go to one person and get told one thing and make one decision, and then go to a different person and get told something different and make a different decision. What I need to do is bring all of the models together into an integrated decision-making framework that allows me to take as much data as I can to be not as accurate as possible, but to be as certain as possible that I'm making the right decision. And that's not necessarily the same thing, because as we saw in a talk earlier, having shorter uncertainty bounds but being wrong is sometimes as bad as having massive uncertainty bounds and containing the solution, because one has information and one has potential error and the wrong decision. So I kind of leapt from there to digital twins, and I'm going to define a digital twin right up front. There are more definitions of digital twins than I've had hot dinners, and I'm getting old now, so that's a lot. I'm going to use my own definition of a digital twin because it helps me get my head around it. So one of the key concepts is that a digital twin is supposed to have a data feed in and out of the mathematical model, and that is supposed to be in real time. Now, actually, to make things useful, a better definition is right time, because it doesn't have to be real time if I don't need the decision till tomorrow, right? Actually, it would be better to have a much better mathematical model that runs a bit slower and gives me data in real time that actually reflects the things that I want to know about. The other thing a digital twin is supposed to do is accurately represent, and I'm playing fast and loose, I know with the term accurate, accurately represent a real world thing, be that an engine, a car. People say you can get digital twins of the environment. I'm holding out on that, not sure about that. Because the point is, it's supposed to accurately represent the real world counterpart. Now let's see what we mean by that as mathematicians. Effectively, that means that these models aren't biased, right? Because if I've got a biased model, it's not accurately representing my real world counterpart. Now, as mathematicians, we're very used to saying, well, as long as we overestimate the risk, right, then it can't be worse than that, so we'll be all right. So it's okay to be biased as long as we're making the uncertainty bounds bigger or making sure it's a worst case scenario. That's okay. We've done that for years, right? But a digital twin, by definition, has to accurately reflect what the real world thing is going to do. And that implies composability. It means that if I've got two things, one feeding into the other, that will accurately reflect real world. Now, as a mathematician, I know if I plug models together and I continue down a chain, what I actually get is, I don't know, if it's biased and it's kind of overestimating and it's changing, then I could get anything at the other end of that chain of mathematical models. But in reality, if I stick a brake system into an engine, into a car on a road, it's probably fairly predictable what's going to come out of it. So, yeah, I might have some slides. Thank you. So how do I get over that? So I'm going to say that digital twins then should be unbiased and should be composable. So where did digital twins come from? Well, they came from the synthesis of computer-aided design, drawing things in a computer, and building management models, basically. How do I manage the air conditioning, the water, the electricity in a model, and actually how do I control that building? Can I have an accurate representation of a building? Now, I know what I'm doing with a building, right? Okay, I've sort of got my head around that. And I can start to think about structural elements. So what happens, how might it fail? What happens if there's an external shock? What's happening in the system? I can start to get to that. But when I say they accurately represent the real world counterpart, I know, for instance, that I could have a physics model of the brake system of a car that didn't necessarily include how hot that brake system got, right? Because I'm worrying about how much force it applies on the car, for instance. or the vibration elements of that brake system, or the power going through it. So I don't necessarily have to mathematically model the heat. I might, because brakes get hot and they change some of their parameters, but I might not. So I know, as a mathematician, that those mathematical models are limited. Does everyone else? If I say I've got a digital twin of a brake system, do they think, well, it just does exactly what a brake system does, just in a computer? Is that what they're thinking? And then are they making the correct inference, the correct decisions out of the information I'm giving them, given a misunderstanding of what actually is a mathematical model, not a digital twin? So we need to put a little bit in the same way of assurance around this, validation around this, assumptions. What do we mean? If I'm applying it to everything, and then I'm assuming that it's correct, but I've only modelled it off data to now, and something that we don't have perfect physics models, right? We definitely don't have perfect physics models of the environment. We're coming close to some good ones, but they're not perfect. So they're not technically a digital twin, only an element. So we need to be quite careful because of uncertainty. It's multifaceted, it's inherent, we know that. And any appreciation of uncertainty is limited and depends on what you want to do with it. I've given you two pictures here, left and a right-hand one, representing the same thing, dispersion of a pollutant in the atmosphere. If I give that to a decision maker, it is highly likely they will see the image on the right as more accurate than the one on the left, right? Because it's it looks like smoke, right? I know as a mathematician that is a realisation of one potential outcome of a model that will probably never happen in reality because it's one of an infinite number of potential outcomes of that model. So it might be a better picture, but it's not more accurate. Actually, the one on the left is, in that sense, more accurate because it encapsulates the things that might happen, right, in a way that allows me to make risk assessment. I can't make risk assessment off the one on the right because tomorrow it might go a completely different way, right? So we need to be quite careful as mathematicians that we're not allowing people to think that things are more accurate than they are. And drawing pretty pictures, fab, right? Sell stuff. Yeah, works really well. But we want to help with decision making. So dispersion models then, the right-hand one, 50% of the ground truth half of the time, right? Even takes me a little while after 20 years of going, actually, do I mean by that? Like, where's my risk? If I then stick that model into an epidemic model, because now I might say, well, it's a release of something nasty that's contagious, then I'm then propagating uncertainty down the line. So I'm taking meteorological uncertainty, sticking it through dispersion uncertainty, sticking it through an epidemiological uncertainty, and then giving it to the decision maker and going, 10 people at risk? What's that mean? How do they make a decision off that? What do I do about it? And now I've got a digital twin, so it's a really, really, really accurate mathematical model, so you don't need to worry about the uncertainty anymore. We know that we do, because we're combining digital twins for a start. There's human error in there. We need to interpret it. We need to understand where these things come from. But if we do it right, with defence background, we get so much benefit out of this, right? If we could do test and evaluation in a computer instead of in real life, right? If we could test the safety of a car without crash test dummies and full-scale mock-ups, if we could just do it in a computer, think of the amount of time, resource, money, safety that would save, just in the car industry alone. If we could do real-time design and manufacture upgrades, if we could sense that something was going wrong, redesign an element, 3D print it and ship. That's what Tesla's starting to do, right? That's a huge benefit cost saving. If we could do as required service and maintenance, so instead of doing an MOT once a year and hoping that nothing blows up in the interim, if we could go, do you know what, actually that brake system is too low, you need to come in now because actually your brakes are not going to react in the way that you're going to. Or do you know what? You don't need to come in now. You're all right for another year. Your car's new. You don't drive it very much. It's fine. You know, if we could actually do that safely, that's not just saving industry. That's saving people, right? All of that has obviously defence implication in terms of time, cost, money, safety. we've got an operational advantage. Somehow that means that we are saving taxpayers' money. We're ensuring that our operations are running smoothly, that our equipment is there and ready. But that requires an awful lot of work. So the vision is to be at the heart of that digital twin development. This is kind of the defence, science and technology vision for digital twins, but I don't think it's far off being a mathematician, and I wrote it, where the IMA needs to be, right? Being at that heart of the development. Mathematicians are the ones that understand what mathematical models are, what they can do, what their limitations are. So we can really enable massive advantage if we're really clear about the limitations, and I guess that's take home from the talk. Because this space is huge. This is not my picture. I didn't do it. Rolls-Royce did it. This is just where digital twins might play in a product development life cycle. So you've got an enterprise digital twin. So that, let's take it from a Tesla perspective, that's the entire Tesla organization that I might have a digital twin of. Then you've got kind of a fleet. So I might have a particular brand of car. I might have my manufacturing plant digital twinned. I might have a particular product digital twin. I might have component digital twin. All of that comes together, right? And somehow I've got to control the data coming in, the uncertainty propagation through it, who owns what, where what element is, the fact that I have got a digital twin that is not linked to a physical one, a physical car. So I've got a digital twin of a car. Then I make that car, and then I've got a digital twin of that car. How do I even decide which is which? So in the ideal, we've got this really nice structure, right? We've got test and evaluation. We've got these mathematical models. They become our digital twins with our data coming in terms of the real world. We've got the logistics, the procurement, the design. All of that comes seamlessly together. If we understand uncertainty quantification, and as mathematicians and statisticians, we know there's a few gaps, right? If we understand the collaboration structures, the security that means, if I've got a digital twin of absolutely every Tesla car and I find a weakness, then everyone driving Teslas is not very happy, right? Because they can't get to work because I've stopped them. That would be very bad. There's infrastructure and common interfaces, and there's things that we all have to worry about. Fidelity. What do I mean by fidelity? What do I mean by digital twin? I'm not modelling on an atomic level. I can't model on an atomic level. So any digital twin is an approximation. So what fidelity do I need? And does that matter? Do I need multiple fidelity digital twins? What does that mean? Is there a hierarchy? What about the assumptions that underpin them? So underpinning that then, there's the physical model, the high performance compute, the common real-time data architecture that underpins all this and that we have to assure and validate. So in terms of defence then, there are blockers. I've kind of said there's a translation talent piece, training, understanding. There's a security and IP piece. There's a data exchange piece. There's an integration piece. But there's feasible things. So what is feasible? High fidelity models residing where there's SQEP is feasible. So there's no point having a really good high fidelity model of how an engine works and then giving it to people that have never seen an engine, right? Because they're not going to know if it's gone wrong. Martine's experts become crucial. When can I apply this? How do I apply it? I need data transfer in right time, and it needs to be clean data, right? I need to think about that, particularly if I'm going, I've got digital in a hospital, right? A long time working on COVID made me realise that we don't actually have a common definition of how someone died, right? We know that someone did die, but if they came into hospital with COVID, did they die of COVID given that they came in after a car accident? Or was it the car accident that killed them and they happened to have COVID? Do you see what I mean? So there's real nuances here that isn't just about yes, no, 0, 1, that we have to understand. So we could do a high-level mapping of capability and data. We can do that. And we can have capability for specific goals. If we know what our outcome is, then we can provide the mathematical models that underpin that outcome. So what do we need? We need a really clear understanding of uncertainty and a method of propagating it. We need to map our assumptions and limitations. It's not just about, it's about validation, but it's also about valid when, where, under what model parameters. When did I train that? Where is it valid? When is it not valid? A map of that modelling structure and the data requirements, so all of the distributions and things that underpin it, and an understanding of the minimum data transfer. So implementation gaps, proprietary digital twins are going to be a thing. How do we link to those? How do we assure them? If I need your digital twin, how do I know yours works to the fidelity that I need it to? How do I ensure and enforce model alignment? So I haven't got one model running in millimetres and one model running in kilometres, and I've got kilometres giving me 10, and I'm putting that into my model that needs millimetres and going, it works really fine. That said 10 kilometres, so that one's great. That was like somewhere between 7 and 20k, and this one's going, right, 10.00000 kilometres. Like, that's not a thing, right? We've got to worry about this. So the fundamental research here, hand that over to academia. Multi-level digital twins, what do I do? How do I link them? What does my uncertainty quantification look like? Not just vertically, but horizontally, when I've got multi-scale, multi-fidelity models of the same thing. What do I do with human in the loop? How do I reuse code? How do I get data in and out? So I kind of did a first steps, because my talks generally go, I don't know how to do it, someone help me. So I'm coming slightly off-piste here and going, well, I think the first steps are to define a base level impact for design and testing of a digital twin. Then develop a base level structure. What fits together, why, for what outcome? Define where your digital twin works and what it works for. Then develop a knowledge graph. We know how to do that as mathematicians. It's a Bayesian net, basically. And then we need to define some things. So who owns the model? Whose is it? What are they doing it for? Why are they doing it? A lot of the stuff that my team does gives us the basis for how we do this. What's the fidelity in the assumptions? Can we literally tag those onto our model without worrying about anything? Where is it valid? For what ranges? So we looked at the financial crisis. We know where it's valid. It's working really well. The things we don't know is where it fails. So how do we bound that? How do we put uncertainty bounds around that? And then when? What's the required time scales for the impact? Because it doesn't have to be real time if it can be more accurate and right time. And if we answer those questions, maybe we can start to make digital twins a reality. The end. Was that quick enough? Sorry.